awkward moment where you're waiting for people to join you on your Instagram Live. Probably because I started right on time, right? Yeah, see, it's telling me, hang on. We're telling more followers to join your video. Ah, there we go. Good evening. This is Josh from Porter Square Books, coming to you once again from my solarium with my zombie flamingo and my ficus tree. And I'm reading to you your bedtime story tonight. And tonight's story is going to be the very beginning of How to Set a Fire and Why by Jesse Ball. Feel free to hold your phone up to the mirror so you can read this yourself. Jesse Ball is one of my favorite writers. He's written a number of really wonderful books, all a little different from each other. He tends to be more of a fabulous writer, tends to write in the tone and lexicon of myths and fables and fairy tales and folklore. Not really magical realism, but if you like magical realism, I think you would really like a lot of his other work. This one, however, is a bit more realistic. And it features one of my favorite characters of all time. The protagonist and narrator is Lucia. She's a teenage girl in a bit of a tough spot. Her father is dead. Her mother is in an asylum, and she's being cared for by her elderly aunt, who's about somewhere in the 70s, which is not exactly sure. And not too surprisingly, she has some struggles because on top of those kinds of familial challenges she faces, she's also an independent thinker, strong-willed, not going to take anything from anybody, and a teenage girl. And I'm sure many of you know how those traits interact with authority in school and also kind of our broader society. A couple things about this book, and then a couple things about what I'm going to read. I think this is actually a really great kind of look at a different type of Holden Caulfield story. That adolescent character who is very much still discovering themselves. Big difference between Holden and Lucia. Lucia has a sense of humor. I don't hate on Catcher in the Rye like some people like to. I think you're actually not supposed to like Holden Caulfield. I think you're actually supposed to have very complicated feelings for him. But Lucia is different. Lucia draws you right in, and you'll see why when I read about her. Also, really good cover design. I know you can't touch this because we have to stay 6 feet apart, and we're however far apart we are now, but this is actually textured so it feels like a matchbook. Very cool. A couple of other notes. There are a couple places where Lucia in her narrative switches to something more visual. I might skip one of those, so you'll see there'll be something, I'll try and be smooth with it, but there might be a bit of an awkward jump. Lucia also really likes to swear. This first section doesn't have a ton of it, and I really love to swear, so that was obviously going to be a connection for me. I don't know if you like to swear, and I actually don't know Instagram's rules. So when I come to a swear, I am going to good place the freckling sauerkraut out of it. So you'll know it when you come to it. One other thing, as I'm sure you've gathered, Lucia is something of a sassy teenager. And if you do happen to be a sassy teenager and are watching, welcome. Lucia gives perhaps one of the great sarcastic answers to, "So, how was your day?" I've ever seen. So be sure to use it in your life, but just don't tell your parents that you got it from me. Just kind of pretend you came up with it on your own. So I'm going to be reading from part 1, in which I introduce myself, of How to Set a Fire and Why by Jesse Ball. 1. Some people hate cats. I don't. I mean, I don't personally hate cats, but I understand how a person could. I think everyone needs to have a cause. So, for some people, it is hating cats, and that's fine. Every person needs to have his or her thing that they must do. Furthermore, they shouldn't tell anyone else about it. They should keep it completely secret as much as possible. At my last school, no one believed me about my dad's lighter. I always keep it with me. It's the only thing I have from him. And every time someone touches it, there is less of him on it. His corpse is actually on it. I mean, not his death corpse, but his regular one, the body that falls off us all the time. It's what I have left of him, and I treasure it. So, I said, many times I said it, don't touch this lighter or I will kill you. I think because I am a girl, people thought I didn't mean it. Someone told me they read in a book that a scientist saw a chimpanzee using sign language on a tree. Apparently, the chimpanzee had learned sign language, and then it decided to use the sign language, and it used it on a tree. The amazing thing is, the story ends here. They made the chimp use it with researchers and such. No sign language with trees. I am completely against this sort of thing. And not because I think trees talk or anything. Don't worry. I am very clear-minded. But still, I bet you let this chimp talk to the trees and a decade later, well, you don't know what happens. But that's the point. What I mean is, I have my own plans, my own ideas. Being kicked out of my last school didn't really affect them. I guess I don't really care which school I go to. But I am sorry that I only grazed his neck with the pencil. I thought I could do better than that. It was a pretty ugly scene. They had me sitting there in the principal's room, my poor aunt next to me. I live with my aunt. Dad equals dead and mom in lunatic house. And across from us, the principal and Joe Schott and his dad and mom. His dad owns a car dealership, which means that everyone respects him, though I don't know why. For instance, the workers at the deli call him boss, even though he isn't their boss. I've seen it happen. Anyway, the secretary was there too, taking notes. The secretary is also the gym teacher, and I hate him. So basically, apart from my aunt, a room full of enemies. It wasn't lost on me that the principal sat with the Schotts. They started out in the worst way. The principal said to the secretary, "Are we ready to begin?" And then, "Yes, I think so." Schott Sr. said something like, "Lucia, we are ready to forgive you," with this horrible expression on his face. And then Joe said, "I won't forgive the biscuit. I'm going to miss at least 2 games." And then Schott Sr. put his hand on Joe's shoulder and started to say something, but the principal cut him off. He said, "Hold on, let's let her go first. Lucia, are you ready to begin? Do you have something to say?" That's when I said, "Your little Prince basketball hero shouldn't have touched my lighter. Then I wouldn't have put a pencil in his neck." Well, they didn't like that. Joe Schott is very admired in those parts. The town darling. There's a burger named after him at the diner, and he even has his own house on his parents' property, a cottage, if you can believe it, which no 16-year-old guy should have. I know, because a girl I was in study hall with went back there with him. He is good looking. She is awful also, so I wish them well. Lucia, if you are going to stay at this school, you must apologize to Joe and his family. I am sorry, I said, that I wasn't clearer. Don't touch my flitting Zippo, Joe. Eventually, these people are all going to go away, and you'll be left alone. Do you understand? My aunt squeezed my leg, so I didn't say everything I wanted to. She is really nice. I mean, my aunt is one of the kindest people in the world, I think. She must be. When we got back to the house, she said she was sorry that things had happened that way. With my dad dying, with my mom going away, but that stabbing somebody wouldn't fix it. She understood the sentiment. She did. Don't we all? Also, she didn't care that I couldn't go back to that school. She would find another school that would take me. The thing she was most glad about was the police weren't involved. Probably the school had wanted to avoid a scandal, but a person only gets so many chances. I love my aunt. She is my dad's older sister and is at least 70 years old. I don't know how. They were dyed-in-the-wool anarchists, she and my dad. And that's what my dad used to say. Then he died and she clammed up. She has enough money to live pitifully and tend a garden. She was so sweet to me, I resolved right then to be no trouble to her ever. We went to a shorty movie theater to watch an old picture about horses. It was a terrible print, and the dialogue was horrid and sentimental. It wasn't Flicka or Black Beauty, but it was completely ridiculous and awful. Anyway, we both cried a lot at the horse's predicament, and then went back home and ate a lot of ice cream with big spoons. She said the big spoons were good on a day like that. 2. You may be wondering why I'm giving you this account. Well, I don't know really. A bunch of things happened, and I'm just putting them in order. I am doing it for myself. You are just a construction. You are helping me to put things in order. You are my fictional audience, and as such, I appreciate you very much. I figure when I finish, I will throw this out. Don't think that I believe that you are any less terrible than anyone else. That's on you. If you want to behave like a decent person, do so. Those of us who aren't miserable fools will probably recognize it. Anyway, this is how it went. My aunt found a new school for me to go to. That school is called Whistler High School. It was the school for the next town over. I could still bicycle there or take a bus. I had a month off, and then it was my first day, the start of the next quarter. I didn't like the idea. You might think that I am some sort of hard case. I am just a quiet person who minds her own business. Going to school is terrible, and it frightens any right-thinking individual. That morning, my aunt had a surprise for me. I came downstairs, and on the kitchen table, there it was, my dad's lighter. How did you get it? My aunt winked at me. I took it from the office the day of the conference. It was there on the desk. I don't want them to have it any more than you do. What a lady. Then it was time to go. I always wear the same thing, so there really isn't much getting ready for me. My aunt has bought me other clothes in the past. I threw them out. I have a gray hooded sweatshirt, hood up, black jeans, a white tank top, cheap black suspenders, my dad's lighter, a notebook and pencil, house key, some money and ID, usually some book, some licorice for if I'm hungry. I believe that a person such as myself can live off licorice. Luckily, I've never had to demonstrate the truth of this claim. When we got to the school, she stopped the car. She said, "You look pretty this morning." I said it's because yesterday I cut my hair like a boy. That's one of those paradoxes you hear so much about. She laughed. First, I was outside the school. It was big, bigger than the other school, all concrete and glass. I didn't like it. I'm not sure that there's any reason for building anything other than huts. Can't we just live in huts and be kind to each other? Seriously. I suppose we'd better go inside. 3. I could draw my first day at Whistler like a diagram. There is a line that goes across the page a little ways, and then it hits a Rorschach blot. When it hits the Rorschach blot, it just dies. The line absolutely curls up and dies. Which isn't to say that it went badly. Here's a sample. Girl, so your name is Lucia. You went to Parkson? I heard you, stab somebody with a pencil. Yeah. I won't tell anyone. That's okay. You can. It doesn't matter. There would be a part in the diagram where you could lay a transparency across with little red dots of color to show other things, like when I noticed kids who seemed okay. I saw a couple of those, but they didn't talk to me. One of them was reading some Trackle, which I thought was okay. I mean, it wasn't a bad sign, at least. One girl asked me if I was going to go out for sports, which made me spit out the apple juice I was drinking. I said that sports were part of the spectacle. She said, what? I said, the ruling class? She looked confused. I said, otherwise people would get fed up and they couldn't be controlled, so no. I mean, I would go for a run if it were a nice day, or definitely swim. I would do judo or something if they had that, but chase a ball? Do I look like a dog? I am the captain of the field hockey team, she said. So that ended that. My mom wanted to know if I made any friends, and I said that I had made a bunch. My aunt wanted to know if I made many friends, and I said that I had made a bunch. She said, tell me about the day. I said, well, it started out really well. There was this girl named Kimberly sitting next to me in homeroom, and she made me a friendship bracelet. She's in drama club, and I'm going to be in it too. We ate lunch together with her boyfriend and a bunch of really nice people. I had so much fun. Then her boyfriend took us into the back of the gymnasium where no one could see us, and he inseminated both of us. Just like that. It felt really good. Not the actual act, but afterwards, the glow of it. So yeah, I'm pregnant and I have friends, but no real prospects, really. That's not funny, said my aunt. How did it really go? Okay, I said. I'll tell you tomorrow. 4. So I should probably mention a fact. I am really good at guessing how things are going to go. I'm a good predictor. I told my aunt that, and she said, like Cassandra? I said no, because I keep it to myself. What I am not saying is I can predict the future. That's garbage. It's this. I have a good way of modeling things in my head so I can guess how to avoid having to do things I don't want to do, or avoid being involved in things I don't want to be involved in. For instance, I am always sick when it is time for gym class. Mostly this works. But I'm not sick right at gym class. No, I get sick during the class prior. So that I have to go to the nurse, and then returning from the nurse, where I turn out to be fine, takes a long time. And then gym class is over. So I'm just starting to get changed, and it becomes clear I shouldn't bother. This was a point of contention between myself and the gym teacher at my first high school. Another example. I made friends with the janitors and security guards at the school on my second day. That is, I said hello and offered them some licorice at the entrance to the foul little room where they sit together when they are doing nothing. As simple as that. Now they like me. They know that I'm not like the other shorts who attend this school. What does that mean? It means that when I sneak out the back of the school to go to the store for cigarettes or licorice, they won't say anything. Also, there's a girl who looks kind of like me, whose locker is 6 lockers down, and I managed to take her license out of her bag when she wasn't looking. Now, if I need to get in somewhere, I can use that, and it will be on the record that she went there. I think about the future state of affairs and what will be needed. I know that kind of thinking is foreign to some of you, but you'll have to wise up, chumps. This is the world we live in. The second day, a guy asked me on a date. I am definitely not very attractive, that's for sure, but I am pretty skinny and not a leper. My apologies to any lepers out there, not your fault. This guy, he probably figured it was the time to strike, right when I got there. Well, I said we could go out if he wanted, and he said, what about for pizza that evening? So we went. He bought me pizza, which was good because I don't have any money. I would rather have bought my own, but what can you do? He got a really big soda, and I asked him if he had a library card. He was mad that the counter guy had talked to me a little too much. He said a whole lot of stuff that I didn't hear. At some point, we went outside, and I left. He was really tall, so there's that. I looked into the future, and I saw that the short guys at the school would figure I'd only go on dates with tall guys. And the tall guys would think she ditched a tall guy after one date. So things were looking good. 5. Maybe I mentioned that my aunt has a garden. Well, she does. So my aunt's garden. I guess there are 2 kinds. French gardens and English gardens. Well, maybe there are Chinese and Japanese ones too, but those mostly have moss and stones, so those don't count right now. I'm talking about gardens with plants, yes? So a French garden, as far as I can tell, is a garden that gets tended. You know, my aunt, she walks around it slowly and bends down now and then to pick up some stitches. Or to stick some other stuff in somewhere. That's a French garden. An English garden is something that used to be a French garden, but that no one does anything to anymore. So it looks run down. Things don't grow in proper lines. This is what they tell me. My aunt's garden goes back and forth between these 2 extremes. Sometimes it is more French, sometimes more English. I asked a French exchange student about this once, and he said that English gardens aren't actually gardens. But he also thinks everyone in France was in the resistance. To me, an embarrassing number were probably Vichy. That's just how it is with history. You do things, and later on when people see what you did, it looks bad. The only exception is if you get to defend yourself, but mostly you don't. History is just people behaving badly. In the diagram, you can see that the house is pretty big. The diagram that you unfortunately did not see. That might lead you to think that my aunt is doing pretty well for herself or something like that. When people drop me off, they drop me off in front of this house, and it is like a huge house. So they think, well, maybe she dresses like a hobo, but she must be wealthy. I guess it's okay for them to think that. My aunt and I live behind that house and behind the garden. The garage is converted and we live in it, as if it were a little house. It must have been a hassle for my aunt to take me in when they sent my mom up. I sleep in the one bed, and my aunt sleeps either in a cot or in this big chair that was in the corner. She often falls asleep reading, so I think it is nice for her. I mean, I said no way at first. I will not take the one bed, but since she is actually asleep most times in the chair, and there's no one in the bed, I do sleep in it. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night because of the full moon, bright, and thought for at least 2 hours about my aunt dying and how it would probably happen any day. Of course, the women of this family are long-lived and all that. She will live to be 92 in utter misery. That is likely. I don't think it would be so bad being old, but there are a lot of kinds of things that old people like. They really like them a lot, that I don't like. So, it seems like maybe it isn't for me, at least not yet. I hate thinking about it. Getting older is, you think you are getting your way, and you think you are getting your way, and you think you are getting your way, and then you are old, and it turns out you didn't get your way. Or, you did, like my aunt, but the consequences are deeply ironic. I saw a documentary once about the pyramids, and it said that the PB, pyramid builders, were aliens, and that they were essentially cicadas, but bipedal, and that their cycle was 10,000 years rather than 10 or 15 years. And so eventually they would wake up, and at least the person who was narrating the documentary, he thought they would be really angry. But it seems to me that they would be used to things having been ruined while they were sleeping. I don't think they would be angry. Not that I believe the documentary. Most documentaries are worse than fiction. So friends, that is Lucia from How to Set a Fire and Why. One of my favorite characters. Hopefully now one of your favorite characters. By one of my favorite authors, Jesse Ball. Look him up. Lots of great stuff, as I said at the beginning. Hope you enjoyed our time with my ficus and my zombie flamingo here in the solarium for your bedtime story. Hope to see you all very soon on our various social media, and even sooner back in the store whenever we can get together and gather again as a community. So sleep well, be like Lucia, fight the good fight, and thank you very much. Have a good night.